Newsmax senior correspondent John Huddy is live outside the Beilinson Hospital in Israel with more on the dramatic exchange. John.
Yeah, and Tom, the hostages, the former hostages, I should say, touched down here by chopper in the helipad behind me here at Beilinson Medical Center, just outside of Tel Aviv, in an area called Petah Tikva. About an hour ago, there was a huge crowd here welcoming their arrival, celebrating their arrival, and obviously, a sense of relief, but also tension for the remaining hostages that are still being held in Gaza by Hamas. But nonetheless, earlier today, Karina Ariev, Daniela Gilboa, Naama Levy, all 20 years old, and then Leroy Albog, 19, were handed over to a Red Cross team in Gaza. Before that, though, Tom, I should mention they were paraded by Hamas in front of a crowd in Palestine Square in Gaza City. They were marched up onto a stage, given actually gift bags in this kind of propagandist effort, a show of strength by Hamas, before then being turned over to that Red Cross team. The Red Cross team then escorting them to a rendezvous point where they were met by IDF forces, who then took them across the border to a military base in Re'im. Re'im, of course, was the site of the Nova Music massacre back on October 7th. They were reunited there with their families. They went through a preliminary medical evaluation before then being, as I said, taken by chopper to the medical center here outside Tel Aviv, where they were met by medical staff and escorted into the hospital. They'll remain here for several days or possibly several weeks as they go through a more intensive medical evaluation. That said, as they do, there were concerns, Tom, last night if the hostages were even going to be released, because Hamas didn't adhere to the actual terms of the agreement. What was supposed to happen was that 3 female soldiers and 1 civilian were supposed to be released. But instead, at the last minute, Hamas decided to release the 4 soldiers. But Israel, nonetheless, decided it wasn't enough to collapse the deal and took them in. But one of those female civilians that is still remaining captive is 29-year-old Arbel Yehud. She was expected to be released today. She is expected to be released next week, but we don't know the condition, her condition, and that of the 26 other hostages. Hamas was supposed to provide a separate list having to do with their conditions. Also, the country is really holding its collective breath when it comes to the Bibas family. We've heard a lot about the Bibas family. Young Kafir Bibas, who was only 8 months old when he was abducted by Hamas, taken hostage. His brother Ariel was 4, and then the parents Shira and Yarden. Hamas said that they were killed in October 7th, but there is a collective hope here on the ground, Tom, that they are still alive, and obviously that the remaining hostages are alive as well. Tom, back to you.
John, we're hearing that there were some 200 Palestinian prisoners that were released in exchange for
Correct.
These 4 female soldiers. What else can you tell us about that? And is there a concern about the disparity here? 200 Palestinian prisoners, some of whom could be fighters, for the four hostages.
Yeah, sure, there is. So of the 200 Palestinian prisoners that were released, 130, Tom, were serving life sentences for terrorist attacks here in Israel and also parts of the West Bank, as it's referred to here, Judea and Samaria and the Palestinian territories, some of them killing men, women, and children. So it's certainly a bitter pill to swallow here for Israelis and for many Americans, for that matter. And that's something that continues to be part of the debate. However, the main objective from day one, since October 7th, obviously, was to get these hostages back. And, these 4 soldiers that were released, we all saw the brutal images of them being captured by Hamas, being taken hostage from the IDF surveillance base in the Halaz, which is across the border from northern Gaza, and particularly Naama Levy, who was in sweatpants, stained sweatpants. She was beaten, bloodied, showing signs of torture, being forced into the back of the Jeep. Those images were stained into the minds of all Israelis and certainly all Americans who have been following this since October 7th. So obviously, it's a relief to get them back, but at certainly a high price that's being paid.
Information. Truth is freedom. is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.